This video is brought to you by friend of the channel Squarespace. Stick around to learn more about them, as well as a special offer they're making available through my channel. Gamers, we are gathered here today to mourn the passing of someone's dearly beloved, Stadia. I didn't know Stadia well, but the 3 people who post on the Stadia subreddit all tell me that this was a platform gone too soon. A promising future cut short by sensationalist provocateur YouTubers wielding their godlike power to bully and brutalize the poor defenseless outfit known as Google. It is a sad, sad day for the little guy. Stadia was a victim of timing, a cloud streaming platform launching during a console shortage, a crypto boom pushing up GPU prices, and a pandemic forcing everyone indoors. How could any cloud streaming platform have found success in such hostile market conditions? Stadia is survived by its father, Phil Harrison, who I'm told has already been tapped on the shoulder to run Facebook's metaverse business. Given how much I know we all love Facebook and the metaverse, I can think of no better man for the job. That's right, nerds. The thing that absolutely everyone said was going to happen has happened. Stadia is dead, and not like the first time when its user count plummeted after launch, and not like the second time when they shut up all their internal development capability, and not like the third time where the imminent closure of the service was accurately leaked a few months ago. For real this time, courtesy of Reverse Midas himself, Phil Harrison, quote, "A few years ago, we also launched a consumer gaming service, Stadia, and while Stadia's approach to streaming games for consumers was built on a strong technology foundation, it hasn't gained the traction with users that we expected, so we've made the difficult decision to begin winding down our Stadia streaming service," end quote. Wow, what a shocker. After literally years of running a service with a horrifically bad business model and completely ignoring the advice of anyone and everyone who said that they were careening straight towards disaster, the service has finally met its end. It is a shame because when Stadia was revealed, I, like many others, was actually really interested in this. I'm a fan of cloud streaming, and in particular, the features that Stadia announced but never delivered were intriguing. A deep integration into YouTube, allowing you to see a YouTube video for a game and then immediately jump into a demo for it on Stadia. How awesome would that have been? Like, imagine if I could have finished my game reviews with, "I recommend Half-Life 3, and if you want to try it for yourself, just click this button on screen," and then like 2 seconds later, you were playing Half-Life 3, thanks to Stadia. And also thanks to Gaben, I guess. Of course, all of that was a fucking lie. No such feature ever materialized, and the same goes for many promised features. The worst part though was the overall business model, forcing you to buy games on Stadia without any way to play them offline, and with no confidence that Google would stick with this because they have a notorious reputation for quickly standing up and then abandoning platforms. I wonder why people think that. The response to the announcement was the predictable "I told you so" dunks from across the board, myself included, but it was the Stadia developers' responses who were the most alarming because some of them were still making games for Stadia and they were not told that this was happening. Simon Roth was working on a Stadia game called Maya and he tweeted, quote, "Oh boy, very happy to see months of my work going in the bin again. I sure do love game development," end quote. A number of other developers echoed similar sentiments, all of them completely blindsided by Google's move. People still playing games on Stadia got an equally raw deal. Yes, they would be refunded for all of their games purchased on the platform, but in most instances, they'll lose all of their progress in their game unless cross-save was enabled. So, for example, one dude has 6,000 hours in Red Dead 2, and that save file will be completely gone unless Rockstar work out some sort of save file transfer arrangement. And knowing Rockstar, I'm sure they'll get right on that. Ubisoft and Bungie have already announced that they're going to work on a solution, but it remains to be seen how all of that stuff shakes out. The story has one final twist, and it's one I can scarcely believe. Apparently, and this is unconfirmed, but apparently Stadia had secured the exclusive rights to Hideo Kojima's next game, which was to be a single-player episodic horror title. Stadia is said to have approved the title, but then scrapped it because they wanted to focus on multiplayer experiences for their cloud streaming service. The person who apparently made this call? Phil Harrison. By the way, there is no way in hell that Phil Harrison doesn't end up heading up some blockchain NFT bullshit outfit in the next 12 to 18 months tops. Just set your watches, okay? That is going to happen, I guarantee it. So, that's Stadia, Ripperino. Their games lived in the cloud and now Stadia lives in the clouds too. Farewell, I will miss the dunks and the song. One more time, Austin, for old time's sake. For a while now, the video games industry has been shrinking, though not in dollar size or player count. I'm talking about the total number of independent companies not owned by massive conglomerates. The past 2 years in particular has seen a slew of acquisitions, from Bethesda to Bungie to the upcoming Activision Blizzard purchase by Microsoft. One of the most aggressive actors in the acquisition space has been Tencent, the Chinese-based entertainment monolith who have a stake in basically everything at this point, while owning a number of outfits outright, including Riot Games. Tencent's strategy has to this point largely been based on acquiring shares in companies rather than buying them outright, but that strategy is about to shift, at least according to a report from Reuters. Quote, Tencent is resetting its mergers and acquisition strategy to put more focus on buying majority stakes mainly in overseas gaming companies, as the tech giant eyes global expansion to offset slowing growth at home in China, people with direct knowledge of the matter said, end quote. The article would go on to say that Tencent is interested in securing a controlling stake in gaming assets in Europe. You might recall that just a few weeks ago, Tencent bought a big chunk of Ubisoft, bringing its holding to 11%, but the deal did cap their total ownership at 17%. Still, if they wanted to buy Ubisoft and they offered the Gilmore family enough money for it, the Gilmore family could still say yes, and they probably would. That's forgetting other players in Europe like the Embracer Group, who themselves have gone on a massive spending spree lately and are now worth approximately $76 billion in terms of market cap. Is it likely that Tencent will buy them? No. But they're probably very worried about what Embracer might hoover up if Tencent doesn't act fast. In other sovereign-led video game acquisition news, it turns out that the Saudis are also going all in on video games. Axios' Stephen Totillo is reporting that Saudi-backed gaming conglomerate the Savvy Gaming Group plans to invest nearly $38 billion in video games as a means of getting a foothold in the sector. Of note, the press release specifically stipulates that $13 billion of that fund has been earmarked for, quote, the acquisition and development of a leading game publisher to become a strategic development partner, end quote. This means that they're very likely far along in the negotiations to purchase a specific publisher, but they don't want to disclose that yet. But which publisher that is remains to be seen. The Savvy Group has lately been buying into a number of games companies, including Embracer, EA, Take-Two, Activision, Nintendo, and more, but it's doing so through simple share purchases rather than strategic partnerships. Either way, it's clear that both China and Saudi Arabia are likely to have a significant impact on the gaming landscape over the coming 5 to 10 years, and likely beyond that. What that means for the industry is anyone's guess. I wasn't aware of this, but People Can Fly were working on a game for GTA publisher Take-Two Interactive, but not anymore it seems. Well, the game may live on, maybe, but the publishing agreement has been terminated, with People Can Fly announcing this week that they've received notice from Take-Two that they intend to terminate the partnership. The game is currently known as Project Dagger, and it's a new action-adventure IP being developed in People Can Fly's New York office. They claim the development of the title will continue and will strengthen their self-publishing efforts. This project is just one of a number that they currently have on the boil, including another one with Square Enix and some VR titles as well. Unclear when we can expect to hear more about Project Dagger, but it's only 2 years into development, so it's likely a ways off yet. Alright, let's beat up on Nintendo for a bit. That's always fun, especially when they're being accused of union busting. Stephen Totillo of Axios Gaming is back with an exclusive report where he sat down for an interview with one Mackenzie Clifton, a veteran video games tester working at Nintendo through contracting firm Ashton Carter. They were sacked by that agency, and they claim it was because they asked a question about unionization at an all-hands Nintendo meeting. Nintendo denied the allegations, saying that Clifton was sacked because they had revealed confidential information. Here's the confidential information this person lost their livelihood over. They tweeted out this, quote, in today's build, someone somewhere must have deleted every other texture in the game because everything is now red, just like pure red. It's very silly, end quote. No reference to which game they were testing, no specifics that could so much as hint about what the fuck they would do. They could have been debug testing the fucking Nintendo website, for God's sake. That is how nondescript this tweet is, and yet this person was given the arse. You really mean to tell me that their union question had nothing to do with it and this was the only reason this person was fired? I don't know about that. The matter continues towards a likely settlement, but Clifton wants a signed apology from Nintendo boss Doug Bowser, and having personally fought Doug Bowser many times myself, I'm not sure he's one for apologies. He's more of a throw them into the hot lava kind of boss. I'm talking about the video game character, by the way, but you never know. You never know. Okay, sadly, we don't have any Xbox dunks this week. Sorry about that. We'll try to meet that quota next week. Maybe if those Halo Infinite moves to Unreal Engine 5 rumors turn out to be true. Man, that's gonna be pretty crazy. I have plenty of dunks for Blue Team though, so buckle up, here we go. Good news first, PSVR 2 is apparently a very big play for Sony, and they're planning to manufacture over 2 million units of the new headset by March 2023. That's according to Bloomberg, who report that manufacturing of the next headset began in September and hasn't faced any supply chain challenges to this point, adding that they're also hearing that PlayStation 5 production should catch up to meet demand in early 2023. So if that's true, you should be able to find a PS5 on shelf at around the same time that the PSVR 2 hits shelves, allowing for Sony to drive a huge marketing push, the likes of which they just haven't needed to do at this point. Facebook's latest MetaQuest headset sold over 2 million units in its first quarter of availability, so it's not impossible to imagine that Sony will sell through this inventory as well, though the cost of entry for this is a lot higher since you also need to have a PS5. Personally, I'm just glad to see that Sony is going all in on this. VR still has a lot of unrealized potential as a platform, and it's nice to see one of the major console manufacturers committing to it so earnestly, where Xbox and Nintendo have explicitly ruled it out. Virtual Boy notwithstanding. Right now, Sony are in the midst of rolling out their Stars loyalty program. It's a cool idea, in theory. Buy PlayStation games and earn trophies, and in exchange, Sony will award you discounts on select titles and cute digital collectibles. They're not NFTs, by the way, they're just little things that completionists can get off on, and they're harmless fun. There are 4 levels to the loyalty program, with the 4th being unlocked by purchasing 4 full-price games and unlocking 128 rare trophies. That tier has a rather controversial reward perk though, better customer service. Sony Japan has informed their region that level 4 customers will have it better than the plebs. Quote, when contacting PlayStation customer support, you'll be given priority in the chat order, end quote. Now, is this a big deal? Obviously not, but it is kind of stupid that Sony are not only paywalling demos behind a subscription service, but now they're paywalling good customer service behind a loyalty program. Come on, Jim, you gotta get back on message, my dude. These own goals are becoming a bit of a habit at this point. And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse for Sony this week, another low-key bombshell dropped. Apparently, we're getting a Horizon Zero Dawn remake or remaster. Oh man, I am already dreading the thought of talking about this. Okay, here we go. So, MP First had the story first, reporting that Guerrilla Games were currently working on a multiplayer title set in the Horizon world. This has been rumored in the past, but looks more certain than ever as multiple outlets went on to corroborate this report. This I love, because if you could make a co-op Monster Hunter style game set in the Horizon world, then goddamn would I be down for that. The other and more controversial aspect of this report is that Guerrilla are also reportedly working on a remake or a remaster for Horizon Zero Dawn, the PS4 exclusive that released just 5 years ago. It is not clear if this is being billed as a remake or a remaster, but the report indicates that the upgrade will bring new lighting, overhauled textures, better animations, and new character models to bring them up to the standards seen in Horizon Forbidden West. Now, MP First did some side-by-side comparisons of these two games to show how much has changed in the last 5 years, and while you can see some difference, it is so minuscule that applying the term remaster to this would be a massive piss take, let alone remake. So here's the thing, right? At the moment, everyone sort of assumes that this is going to be a $70 full-price product that Sony are going to label a remake, even if it's just a minor touch-up with some accessibility features added. That may well be the case, but we don't know that yet, and I'm holding off judgment until those details are known. If this is a $70 remake, then I think it's a very different value proposition versus The Last of Us Part 1, and I really think this got lost in all the noise surrounding the price of that product, but that was a massive visual upgrade to every part of the game. Massive. Conversations around the price tag were more than justified, but no one can in good faith argue that that was just a minor visual update. When it comes to Horizon, the same level of uplift is impossible, so you gotta ask, what will the price tag be? If it's $50, is that okay? If Sony offer a $20 upgrade path, is that okay? I don't know. We have to wait and see, and that's why I'm not passing any judgment yet. But yeah, I do think it is disappointing to see Sony put resources into stuff like this. And I said the same thing about The Last of Us, which is that sure, you can do this, but should you? Sony are becoming increasingly risk-averse and doubling down on major franchises where they could be allocating those resources to create new, more experimental IP. So while a $20 remastered Horizon upgrade path might make this easier to swallow, I'm still going to be thinking that this just didn't need to exist. And I'd rather that Sony put these finite resources to work on other, more interesting, more worthwhile projects. Projects like a Legacy of Kain remake, which admittedly is not in Sony's camp, but it is in Crystal Dynamics'. And this week they gave us all a spark of hope when they sent out a survey asking everyone what they want to see for the future of this franchise. Now listen, this is a big fucking deal. They recently reacquired the rights to Legacy of Kain when the Embracer deal went through. They can make a Legacy of Kain game if they want to. The only thing they are currently working on right now is Perfect Dark, but that's a collaboration with The Initiative, another studio. So theoretically, Crystal Dynamics might have the bandwidth to do this sooner rather than later, and this survey indicates that they are thinking about it. I cannot believe it. All of my whinging and crying and begging on Twitter has paid off. I even made a sign, damn it, and it worked. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and oh boy was I squeaky. At the same time, I don't want to get my hopes up because I've certainly seen my fair share of surveys go out that ultimately lead to nada, but it's nice to dream that this long wait will soon be over and that Kain and Raziel will recommence their star-crossed bromance. I've missed you, boys. So, what got announced or delayed this week? Well, a big but very welcome surprise was the reveal of Wild Hearts, the Monster Hunter style game coming out of Koei Tecmo and being published by EA. Now, this was spoken about in a press release just a few weeks back, and you got the distinct impression that this wasn't coming for a very long time. That could not have been more wrong, because not only did we get a gameplay trailer reveal, but we also got a release date, and that release date is the 17th of February next year. That is crazy. In an industry that leaks like a sieve, Koei Tecmo and EA managed to keep their Monster Hunter game a secret for the full 4 years of its development. This title is looking rather interesting, I think, clearly drawing a lot from Monster Hunter while going for a very different style visually, and also a big focus on these wooden contraption things. I don't exactly know what these are, but they look rad as hell. I just think it's interesting to see someone try and take a bite out of Capcom's pie. Monster Hunter is seriously entrenched at this point, so I hope EA has the will to stick with this one, because I suspect they're in for a tough as hell uphill battle that can only be won with a few years worth of updates and support to whatever they put out. Put out. BPM was one of my favorite games of last year, and good news, they've just released an update allowing you to import your own music into the game. Want to shoot demons to the beat of the crab rave? Well, now you can. It's not usually the sort of thing I shout out in this section, but I love BPM, and it's my show, and I do what I want, and you're not my real dad anyway. IGI Origins was revealed this week to the surprise of absolutely everyone, because this is a prequel to a game that is 22 years old now, and that game didn't exactly set the world on fire when it launched back then. Still, it's being dusted off by an outfit called Toadman Interactive, who showed off a fairly straight-laced but impressive-looking reveal trailer this week. There's no release date or platform for this one yet, but it is expected to drop sometime in 2023. Entropy Center is a game I shouted out a few weeks back in my Put This On Your Radar segment. It's kind of like Portal if instead of making portals, your gun could bend time. It's looking super interesting, and there's a demo out for it at the moment as well. It just got a release date announcement November 3rd, coming to all platforms bar the Switch. Unironic Game of the Year contender Vampire Survivors is coming out of early access. If you think I'm joking about either of those statements, you are sorely mistaken. Vampire Survivors is a legitimate Game of the Year contender, and I will fight anyone who disagrees, and it's coming out of early access on October 20th. The game for which the Steam Deck was purpose-built makes ready to receive scores of perfect scores, and I cannot wait to see it. Fascinating to see how many Vampire Survivor likes have popped up over the last few months alone. They do what they can, but so far none has been able to survive the OG Survivor. This game is like $4, by the way. It is literally a microtransaction. Please buy it. You will be obsessed with it, and yes, it's very good. And final announcement for the week is Sackboy: A Big Adventure, which breaks free of its PlayStation shackles and arrives for the first time on PC on October 28th. Consistent with other PlayStation PC ports, this one features a raft of PC-specific options, including ultra-wide support and tech like NVIDIA DLSS. This is a great game, fun for all ages, and if the PC port is the same quality as Sony's recent efforts, then it's a pretty safe purchase. 2 delay announcements this week, one big, one small. The first one is for Oxenfree, the follow-up to the 2D narrative-led thriller released back in 2016. The sequel has flown under the radar a little, but it was meant to ship sometime this year. No longer. It will now ship sometime in 2023. No release date yet. And the big one is one I can scarcely believe. Skull and Bones has been delayed again. And it's not just a small delay either. It's moved from its planned November 8th release date to March 9th next year. Holy shit! they are going to make a documentary about the development of this game, and it's going to be an epic on the scale of like Cleopatra or Gladiator, and it's going to run for 4 hours like the 10 Commandments. God damn, man, what an absolute clusterfuck of a video game. And all the buzz seems to reinforce the idea that even Ubisoft themselves have low expectations for this one. Apparently, this kind of has to go out the door because Ubisoft took a bunch of money from the Singaporean government and they don't want to pay that back. I don't know, I've never seen any official confirmation of that claim, but yeah, man, this is looking like a disaster in the making. So if an additional 4 months of dev time takes the edge off that, then that's a good thing, I guess. But if like 7 years hasn't been enough time for this title to get ready for launch, I very much doubt that 4 months is going to raise our mizzen mast, if you know what I mean. So what came out last week? Well, first up was Obsidian's Grounded, which spent a good year or so in early access before launching into 1.0 last week. Met with naught but thunderous applause. The game is currently sitting at a strong 83 on OpenCritic, with Steam reviews echoing that sentiment at 85% very positive. IGN gushed over this one, scoring it a 9 out of 10 and saying, quote, "Grounded is a fantastic survival game with a killer premise, rewarding progression, and boundless creativity that even a host of bugs can't spoil," end quote. PC Gamer were equally on board, scoring it a 90 and saying, quote, "Grounded is a delightfully creative and occasionally terrifying survival sandbox," end quote. Lovely to see Obsidian stick the landing on this one, given how out of the box the premise and development pathway was, and I really look forward to their next quirky little project, Pentiment, which launches in mid-November. Moonscars is that dark, broody 2D Souls-like I've been playing through in the background these past few weeks. I've enjoyed this one, and I'm not alone in that, it seems, with the title sitting at a mostly positive 76% on Steam and a fair 74 on OpenCritic. It's about where I'd put it as well, actually. God is a Geek scored this one a 7, saying, quote, "Moonscars is an intentionally bleak adventure in an unforgiving world. The players who seek a genuine challenge will certainly find it here," end quote. As I've said previously, nothing too surprising here, just some good, solid 2D action that looks fantastic. If you're interested, then don't forget this one is on Game Pass. Moonbreaker is the latest from Subnautica developer Unknown Worlds. Very different from their previous project, but hey, Subnautica was very different from Natural Selection, so we shouldn't be too surprised. This turn-based miniatures game hit early access this week, and the reception has been good, with the title sitting at a mostly positive 77% on Steam. No critic reviews up yet, as this is an early access product. Positive reviews point to a great art style made even better by the ability to paint all of your miniatures, as well as some strong turn-based gameplay. More negative reviews point to the inclusion of a cash shop which sells cosmetic items, which is a surprise, to be honest. Not really what I would have expected from Unknown Worlds. Either way, this one still has a long ways to go in its early access lifecycle, so we likely have a good 12 to 18 months before this hits 1.0, and a lot can change in that time. And finally, Valkyrie Elysium hit PS4 and PS5 and PC last week, the second RPG that Square Enix released this month, the other being Deerfield Chronicles. This one seems to have met the same middling reception that Deerfield did. Critics have this at a fair 67 on OpenCritic. No Steam scores up yet, as this title doesn't hit PC until November 12th. Push Square had a good write-up, scoring it a 6 out of 10 and saying, quote, "Valkyrie Elysium is a game of two halves. The level design and objectives feel at least 2 generations old, and the characters and storyline are more like placeholders than the finished article. There's no capital F feelings here or much in the way of narrative justification, but if you're okay with that and you just want 15 to 20 hours of fast, frantic, fluid combat, then we can just about recommend this one," end quote. So what's coming out this week? Well, first up is Marauders, which isn't on too many people's radar, but I feel like it should be. This is essentially Tarkov if you put it in space. Teams of 3 have to dock with space stations or wreck ships so they can loot for scavenge parts. The risk? Other teams of 3 are trying to do the same thing, and with an unforgiving time to kill that rewards tactics and situational awareness, the stakes for this one are always very high. This one has had a few beta tests, and they've all had some positive buzz behind them, and the game launched yesterday into early access, exclusive to PC for now, but I'm sure we can expect console ports when the game eventually hits 1.0. Biggest release of the week is Overwatch 1.5, or Overwatch 0.83, depending on your feelings about the move to 5v5. The follow-up to the 2016 Game of the Year and one of the strongest multiplayer debuts in the history of video games has had very little buzz behind it. I don't know, man, maybe I'm just looking in the wrong spots, but most of the chatter I've seen about this has been lamenting the move from 6v6 down to smaller team sizes, rather than genuine excitement about what this update could mean for the future of the game. People are very cautious about the move to free-to-play, about the changes to character kits, the battle pass progression system. It just seems like skepticism across the board, and I think that's because Overwatch 2 at no point has really communicated to any lapsed or potential players what is being offered here over and above what Overwatch 1 was already offering. I mean, I live and breathe video game discourse every single fucking day of my terminally online life, and I cannot name one bullet point as to why this is going to be better than Overwatch 1. I genuinely can't. I do wish the team all the best with this one though. The Overwatch team has stood largely apart from all the bullshit that's engulfed the rest of Activision Blizzard, and they've lost some key talent over the last 18 months that would have no doubt shaken their confidence. Combined with the troubled and delayed development of this sequel, it feels like the Overwatch team are due for a win, and I genuinely hope they get one here, but yeah man, I don't know, I'm not really feeling this one personally. Nier Automata is coming to the Switch in the form of the End of Yorha edition, and apparently the port is very, very good. A huge surprise given that the PC port was very, very shit for a very, very long time. If you haven't played this masterpiece, you can do so on the go when it launches on the 6th. And speaking of Switch ports, the only other release this week is No Man's Sky, squeezing the infinity of the universe into the palm of your hand, basically. When this was first revealed, we'd all wondered if this would be a cloud-streamed version, since that would have been the safest route for developer Hello Games. But just like pretty much everything else they do, they shot the moon and they appeared to have hit the mark, delivering a port that runs natively, and pre-release impressions have been positive. Obviously, some compromises had to be made in terms of visual fidelity, but the rest of the package is there, minus the multiplayer. Pretty impressive technical feat getting a game like this to run on Nintendo's potato hardware, and if you want to grab it for yourself, then you can do so on the 7th. Hey, put this on your radar. Well, it's that time of the year again. The Steam Next Fest is here, and if you're unfamiliar with this, it's an indie showcase that Valve hosts a few times a year, featuring hundreds and hundreds of playable indie demos. And unlike PlayStation demos, you don't have to pay for them. Good times. Previous Next Fests are where I found some truly amazing stuff like Sable, Death Trash, Gloomwood, Cult of the Lamb, and so much more. Your next game of the year could be a playable demo right now in this current Steam Next Fest, for real. If you've never checked it out previously, just click the link below the like button or navigate to the page in Steam. When you're there, scroll down to the Browse Demos section and you can filter demos by a few different means, including most wish-listed upcoming games, which is a great way to find stuff that already has some buzz behind it. But don't be afraid to just click around and try something that takes your fancy. Sometimes it's pretty shit, most of the time it's okay, but sometimes it's extraordinary, so it's worth a few risky clicks here and there because, like old Gump said, you never know what you're gonna get. The Next Fest runs this week only, so do be sure to get in quick. Sort of free stuff time now, and it is the first week of the month, which means your cup runneth over with sort of free stuff. Let's get to it. First up is Epic, who right now are giving away the competitive platformer Runbow, as well as the very odd but kind of cool looking Drone Racing League simulator. On the 6th, those will cycle out to be replaced by Rising Hell, which is a vertical action platforming roguelike, as well as Slain Back from Hell, a metal-inspired action platformer. Man, Epic are on some sort of hell bent this week, aren't they? Is there some sort of hell holiday I don't know about? Anyway, Twitch Prime is up next, and it's quite a haul this week, let me tell you. If you're a Twitch Prime or Amazon Prime subscriber, you can get your greasy mitts on Todd the Seagull Howard's finest hour, Fallout 76, the game that birthed an entire generation of YouTubers, as well as a host of timeless memes. It's yours for 16 times the discount. If you're more interested in good video games, then perhaps Total War Warhammer 2 might be more to your liking, since Uncle Jeff is also making that available. If you're enjoying the Rings of Power TV show and you've got a hankering for some more Ring-adjacent adventure, then you'll be pleased to know that Middle-earth Shadow of War is the other big hit of this month, as well as a number of other smaller titles to fill out your sort of free library. These are all available all month long, so grab them before October 31st. How about we do PS Plus next? 3 bangers this month from Team Blue, and not a single remaster in sight, very unlike Sony. For both PS4 and PS5 is Hot Wheels Unleashed, one of the biggest surprises of last year. Just a really great, fun, very competent racer that felt like it was punching well above its weight when it's appeared. Love that one. Next up is Injustice 2. Admittedly, I'm not a fighting games dude, but I've always found this one fun to muck around with. That one is for PS4. And the other PS4 title is Super Hot. A bit of an oldie now, but absolutely a goodie, as its time-bending take on bullet dodging remains as novel as ever. Made even better by VR, if you ever get the chance to experience it that way. We're still waiting on the monthly PS Plus Extra and Premium refreshes, but word on that should hit sometime sometime in the next day or two. I'll be sure to update you on that next week. Same goes with Game Pass, actually. We don't have any official word on the full monthly refresh yet, but we do know that there are a few things locked in for this month, including Scorn, A Plague Tale Requiem, and a little-known JRPG by the name of Persona 5 Royal. If Xbox announce absolutely nothing else this month, that's still a pretty damn great month for Game Pass. And finally, the zombified corpse of games with gold shambles on, now missing some of its digits as the offering no longer includes Xbox 360 games. It's just 2 Xbox One games this month. The first is Windbound, which is a nautical-themed exploration game where you build your own sailboat and then try to sell it, which is not easy, by the way. The other one is Bomber Crew, which is kind of like Fast and Light, but with bombers. So yeah, games with gold, it still exists. Basically. Our feel-good story for the week comes courtesy of Kotaku, who report on a phenomenon that I experienced personally when I used to work at GameStop. And that phenomenon is GameStop daycare. What is GameStop daycare, you ask? Well, imagine that you are a parent, but a really shitty one, and you need to run some errands at a local mall, but you don't have anyone to watch the kids. What do? You can just dump them at a GameStop where they will occupy the demo units and ransack the store while you go to the bank and get your hair done. This is a very long-standing practice, and GameStop staff appear to have had enough of it. One telling Kotaku recently, quote, "Like, if you're gonna leave your kids somewhere while you shop, then leave them at home with a babysitter. Your kids are not our problem. We already have enough to deal with," end quote. There's a GameStop subreddit where staff discuss this stuff, and one thread asks, "What do you do when parents drop their kids off at your store?" One person said, "Call the mall cops." Another one said, "Try to sign them up for pro memberships." That's awesome. Way to turn lemons into lemonade, my dude. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are Dunskies here. Could I kindly, very politely, ask you to smack the ever-living shit out of that like button, maybe even subscribe if you're feeling generous. Ding the notification bell, maybe. I don't know, up to you. I can tell you right now that I am reviewing 4 games releasing this month. All of them are a pretty big deal, and I have a big preview dropping just over 24 hours from now when this video goes live. Looking forward to getting that one out there. Thank you very much for tuning in as always. Australians, if you are headed to PAX this weekend, have an absolute blast. My editor Austin will be walking the floor, so if you see him, make sure you tell him that SkillUp said, get back to work. I'm joking, by the way, Austin, please don't ever leave me, okay? All right, episode done. Thank you, and thanks to this week's sponsor, Squarespace. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that starting a business is easy, because it's not, but I will say that at least one part of it is pretty easy, and that's starting your own website, which has never been easier thanks to Squarespace. Right now, you may have something that you want to sell. Maybe it's something you make, maybe it's a service you provide. Whatever it is, Squarespace has easy-to-use tools that let you create a website for that thing in a way that looks totally professional and can instantly get your business rolling. Like if you were selling clothes that you make or design, then Squarespace has tons of templates to choose from and customize so you can highlight your range in the best possible way. Or if you're selling a service, then Squarespace has an appointment scheduling tool so that customers can book online instantly. And that's just the front end. Squarespace has tools to help you track your inventory, manage payments, and detailed website analytics so you can see what people are doing when they get to your website and how you can make the most of that. It really is the full package, and it's so straightforward and intuitive that you don't need to have any experience in website creation. Just select from one of the dozens of professional looking templates, customize it to your own taste, and boom, you're good to go. As I mentioned earlier, Squarespace are a long-term partner of this channel, 3 years running now actually. I really appreciate that support. Squarespace are helping me turn my passion into a career, and that's what they do for a lot of people, because if you've got a passion that you want to share with the world, then a website is a great place to start. To get started, visit squarespace.com, and if you want to get serious, visit squarespace.com/skillup to get 10% off your purchase of a website or a domain name. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching it.